Woo! Hey everybody, Carl here with Drive and Ride Motors in Moncton, New Brunswick, fresh off a ride, and today we're going to do a video review of this beautiful 2021 KTM Duke 890. This thing is a weapon, and I can't wait to show you what it's got. So this is the 890 Duke, which replaced the 790 Duke. And right off the bat, I should say this is considered a naked sport bike. And so you're gonna have sport bike performance, but you're not gonna have all the fairings that come on a typical sport bike. And your seating position is gonna be a little more comfortable, scratch that, a lot more comfortable than your typical super sport. Your handlebars are gonna be up quite a bit higher, and your feet position is gonna be a little bit more down below you here, as opposed to way back here with your handlebars way down here. So you're gonna have some of that performance, but you're gonna be sitting more in a dirt bike stance. A lot of people prefer that because you can drive a lot longer, and it's quite a bit more comfortable, to be honest. So a couple quick fun stats about this bike. As it stands, this bike weighs 390 pounds. It's featherweight for the amount of power it puts out, which is 115 horsepower, 68 foot-pounds of torque. So the power to weight ratio of this bike is what makes it such a weapon on the road. It's got a lot of agility, a lot of speed. You got a top speed of 237 kilometers an hour, and you're gonna get from 0 to 60 miles an hour or 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in around 3.1 seconds, which performance numbers are pretty good for a bike like this. So there's a couple things we've changed on this bike from its stock configuration. First thing being, we took off the rear view mirrors that came up from here and added the handlebar end mirrors, as well as we've added a windscreen that can come on and off, but that's what those two brackets are here. Those are not part of the bike stock. One of the things I like about the KTM is that their stock signal indicators are actually nice and small. So some of those other bikes have big bulbous lights, and a lot of people want to get rid of them right off the bat. These are stylish enough and small enough that, you know what, I don't think you need to take them out of there. Coming down here, we've got the typical KTM headlight. Now, this is a love it or hate it for some people. Some people love the way this looks, and then some people not so much. Personally, I find it looks really great. You got these 6 LED lights coming down here with this big LED light around the top. Kind of gives it an aggressive horn-like look to it, and I think it's sharp and works really good at night. Coming down here, we do have the Apex shocks. We do have cross-drilled rotors and your KTM brakes, and they work really well. This, I should mention, is the standard Duke. There is a Duke R, and that's going to be a little bit more race configured. You're going to have a couple more performance parts upgrades like the Brembo brakes, adjustable front shocks, things like that. But unless you're taking this bike to the racetrack, the average person probably is not going to notice a whole lot of difference between those configurations. So looking at the handlebar configuration and your instrument cluster, I think that KTM did a spectacular job in laying this out. The screen's not too big. It does have a lot of information on there, useful information, and the controls here are very, very simple to get to while you're driving to get your different settings and configurations. This does redline at 9.5 thousand RPM as where actually it starts to redline. So you do have a nice high rev range on this bike. You do have different settings in here, so you can actually go to ride mode and configure it between sport, street, and rain. Of course, if you go to rain mode, that's going to cut some of your power. It's going to adjust your ABS and things like that. Sport mode is where you're going to get most power to the wheels. Now, one of my favorite features on this bike that I'll be honest with you, I didn't actually test out, but you can actually go into your ABS mode and put it to S-Moto or Supermoto. What this is actually going to do is it's going to disable the rear ABS in this bike. So as you're coming into a corner, you can crack that throttle, burn the back tire out, spin it out as you're going. It's not going to engage the anti-lock braking system or the traction control system. It's going to allow you to just keep motoring. Again, a kind of a neat feature for some of those guys that like to do some stunts and really push the levels of performance out of a bike like this. Now, we have added a couple other goodies to this bike. You might have noticed that we have a cruise control option right up here. That is not stock with this bike for this year, but you can add it on there, and it does integrate seamlessly within your instrument cluster, so you can set your speed. You're going to see all your cruise control settings right on here, which is super nice. We also have heated grips added to this bike. not a stock option, but something you can add to the bikes, which is something that a lot of people would like to know if it can be done, because once you get used to having some heated grips on your bike, it makes your riding experience a whole lot better if you get out into the cooler weather. Another thing I like about this bike is how it's got the a nice wide seat for the rider, and you do have another separate seat here for the passenger. So the passenger pillion is actually separate from this seat, set up a little bit higher, gives it that super sport look, which I think is really sharp. Coming over here, you'll notice we got two brackets here. Those are not stock for this bike. Again, these are an add-on we put on. You can have the KTM hard shell panniers on here if you want to go touring, take some extra luggage. That's what those are. Of course, this is a chain-driven motorcycle. You're going to get that snap when you give the throttle. You get that instant response, which you would want in a sport bike. Comes in cast 17-inch wheels, and the tires that come on this bike stock are the Continental Conti Road. They are 180 55 17s, and they work really, really well. This bike has close to 14,000 kilometers, and these are the original tires, so they're wearing quite well. You can put all sorts of different tires on here depending on the type of riding you plan to do. I think the last thing to do is put the helmet on, take it for a ride, see how this handles on the road.
Yep, she gets up there nice. I love that L-twin. There's something about a twin, you get that thumping sound. I mean, I like the triples and the four cylinders as well, but I'm telling you, the twins have a unique sound to them. You'll notice the screen down here actually turns dark. Once it gets darker out, that goes from a light, bright white background so you can see it on sunny days, and it turns dark for so you don't get blinded. Now, the handling of this bike is superb. It's so light. Again, you got your sitting position is right up top, so you feel like you're right in control. You can like see the road right down there. Even at 3,000 RPMs, she's got a lot of bite. In fact, if you crack it when you're at 4,000 or 5,000 RPMs, this front end is going to come up on you pretty easily. Clutch has a nice response on it. As I mentioned before, all the buttons are nice and easy to get to. Go into your favorite settings. You got all your controls here. Cruise control right there. And it's got a lot of features on it that you wouldn't expect on a smaller bike like this. I mean, it's going to tell you your range, how far you've got of fuel in the tank. It's 27 degrees out right now, so it's nice and balmy. So you've got your temperature rate on there. I should mention this bike does come with a 14-liter tank, so it's not the largest of tanks, but the range on it is really decent. I have personal experience, and my best was 320 kilometers on one tank, and that was getting pretty low, so I'd say you're probably in the 275 to 300 range, and that's going to depend on if you're driving like this or if you're just putting down a back road somewhere, keeping the RPMs nice and low. You're going to get better mileage on that. Well, I'm glad we're getting this little test drive out of the way now. Up in the horizon, we've got rain. Let's take this on the highway and see how she handles. Woohoo! The wind is not bad at all. Of course, you're going to wear a full face helmet on a bike like this. So even at a highway speed, you know, we're doing 114, 115, 110, 120. The wind is not so bad. There's just something about a twin that just sounds, you know, sounds gruff. And the brakes, again, they work really well. We're coming up on the shop here now.
that's it for the review of this bike, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. If you're looking for a road bike, this is probably one of the best bikes I've ever had to ride in terms of its flexibility and its capabilities to pretty much do what I want, go where I want, and be comfortable while doing it. As always, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, whichever platform you like most. And until next time, guys, keep driving. Hey, or on days like today, keep riding.